Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. New week means new theme. This week's theme, we're going to be talking about songs with vocal harmonies in them, either predominantly or at least in the majority. So, what I'm hoping for, I didn't quite make the stipulation. I am looking forward to hearing songs with multiple vocalists harmonizing with each other, but I suppose we might see a couple of songs with a single vocalist who also does backing tracks that harmonizes with themselves. I'm not sure. We'll find out as we dig into this week. We're starting off though with some Gentle Giant. We've checked them out before. They're a 70s prog rock band, maybe. And I'm pretty sure the last couple of times we looked at them, they had multiple vocalists. So I'm really excited to dig into this again. All right, let's go. The song's called Octopus.
All in all, each man in all men and all men in each man. He can see, she can see, she can see whatever. You may know what I don't know, but not that I don't know it well. That I can tell you, so you will.
What am I in for?
To tell me all man in all men in each man. He can see, she can see whatever. You may know what I don't know, but not that I don't know it. Well, I can tell you, so you will have to tell me all. It hurts him to think that she is hurting her by him. To be in she thinks he is hurting her by making her feel guilty of hurting him by thinking she wants to her. He wants him to want to her. She pretends she wants him to get. She pretends.
Getting some grooving against all that hocketing. Love that use of panning there. Feels like right in front of me. Well, technically right behind me. The piano feels in front of me. Got really dark all of a sudden.
So you will have to tell me all. I get what I deserve. I deserve what I get. I have it, so I deserve it. I deserve it, for I have it. I get what I deserve. I deserve what I get. I have it, so I deserve.
Yeah. Really interesting metric modulation going on between some of these really strict time signatures. Bit of a marching snare idea. Yeah, there's a lot of these ideas of the strict 4/4 versus more triplet ideas. And it's not always triplets either. Sometimes it's just a dotted quarter notes, which is going to take up, three half beats in 4/4. Um, yeah, this is a song. This is a really interesting song that I'm fascinated by. So the core aspect of the song is, sorry, I'm a little under the weather. The core aspect of the song, though, is going to be this hocketing idea, which is present everywhere, and it's not just two instruments that are hocketing. We have multiple instruments. Um, and I think that at times there's even three lines that are working within this hocket, and each line is presented to multiple vocalists. So not only do we have the hocket, we also have harmonies within the hocket, and the hocket is sometimes divided up between three dyads of notes. um, and it's absolutely fascinating to listen to. It is extremely segmented in a sort, but it also comes together very nicely. And I think the mix also just really digs into the Hocket because it provides a lot of space between the voices, which is, I think, necessary. We have some range differences and some minor timbre differences between all of the different voices. I'm not sure how many people are actually participating here in the vocals, but at least for me, quite a few of the timbres are fairly close enough together that I would wager they're harder to separate sonically if they were played all in the same area. Like, for instance, if every vocalist was centered. So instead, not only do we have the Hocket by range and by vocalist, we also have the Hocket presented through the panning as well. We have some voices that are just really wide, sitting on the fringes of our left and right sides. We have some that are closer to the middle. We have that lower bass vocalist, has that really deep voice way down here somewhere, maybe even a little lower. And that's centered, right? So not only do we have the notes bouncing around between timbre, we have the notes bouncing around between range, we have the notes bouncing around spatially around us. And it creates this extremely disorienting feel that I absolutely love. And that's usually not what I talk about with disorienting elements. Usually, I find myself not enjoying them because of the disorienting nature. But here, even without knowing the thematic purpose of it yet, I'm still really appreciating how the production went in to achieving the extreme hocketing effect that we're getting from this. And let me define this real quick for anyone who doesn't know what a hocket is. It is when you take a single melody line. So if you took every single note that was sung during most of these sections and you put them all on the paper together, that would be your single melody. And you could play that with, assuming everybody played every note, you could have multiple instruments playing it. You could have something like a piano play the entire melody just in itself. But instead of letting one instrument play every note, you divvy them up. Maybe, the violin plays the first two notes, and then a piano plays the third, and then a tuba plays the next four, and then the violin plays the next three, and then the vocal, whatever I said, piano, I think, whatever the second instrument was, that they might play two or three, and you just divvy up the notes to all these different instruments so that the melody itself hasn't changed. but you have a variety of timbres within it. And it's called a Hocket when you divide a single line up between multiple voices. It is sort of like the opposite of harmonies, where everybody participates in a melody, they just do it together. A Hocket, everybody participates in a melody, they just do it separately. And it creates this sort of disjointed back and forth. It doesn't always have to be disjointed though, because, like I said, if you center pan everything, and if your timbres are close enough, maybe you have a violin and a viola, it's not going to be as disorienting as if you separate them spatially and have a violin and a saxophone, or a violin and a toy piano. Something's going to be a bit sharper of an attack, or like a glockenspiel or something, just sonically very different from that violin. And you can change how awkward this Hocket sounds by what kind of voices you're utilizing. So yeah, they just did a fantastic job basically making the entire song into a Hocket. And, it's not... Here's the interesting thing, though, that I found at least. Because Hockets they're not new to me. I'm quite used to them. They don't show up too often in pop music, so I'm not sure how much exposure a lot of you might have to them. I've only really talked about them a couple of times before. And we are, well, the special selection for today is going to be the 700th reaction. So, sorry, the 800th reaction. So, yeah, we've listened to a lot of music, and I've only really talked about Hockets a couple of times. So, yeah, it's not really big in a lot of popular music, especially rock and metal. And if I had to speculate, maybe I'm getting a little off topic here, but probably just because of the small instrumentation size. We've talked about that before, but rock and metal typically worked within 4 voices: bass, guitar, drums, and vocals. It really takes a larger orchestration, something like this, where we have multiple vocalists plus guitar and bass and drums and piano and a glockenspiel, just like a larger instrumentation for the song that really allows you to play around with a Hocket like this. Although, what I'm going into here, though, is what else is interesting is that the vocals tend to be by themselves. The extra instrumentation actually doesn't come into play during a lot of the Hocketed sections, which are purely a cappella. I think, at least. I remember them as purely a cappella. I hope that's how it is. There are a couple of sections where the band does come in, the sound gets larger, and I think there are some smaller Hocketed sections. But to me, the primary verses are just the vocals. So I guess it isn't so much the instrumentation, just bands don't do it. But yeah, so if you don't have a lot of exposure to Hockets, that's what they are. And yeah, like I was saying though, it's the sparseness of these verses. That's where I was going with this. It's interesting to me because, the Hocket is an important part of the song. But like I said, the Hocket itself is not too special to me. I've heard it, plenty of times. We push that away. What else is going on here? And we have a lot of dynamic elements. First of all is volume. I don't know if this took place before the Volume Wars, which I think was around this time. I think they started about the 70s, but it might have been the 80s. Wait, no. We were talking about Beach Boys and Wall of Sound, and I'm pretty sure when we checked out Sloop John B, that was like 60s, wasn't it? And that was the beginning of the Wall of Sound kind of stuff. So this would have been after the whole Volume Wars kind of thing started. The idea of presenting a whole song at the maximum volume level. So this must have been, if I'm remembering my history correctly, an intentional decision to have so much vocal dynamism, so many vocal dynamics. I don't know if dynamism's the right word. So many vocal dynamics in this song during some of the vocal only Hocketed sections. We're about 30 dB shy of our highest point. There's a wide range here of volume, and it's not that sort of fake volume that we hear in a lot of modern production where it's all maximum volume all the time, but it feels or sounds like it's quieter, right? This is true volume difference. Um, and so we have this constant playback between sparseness and very full, very wide, full instrumentation. And I'm not quite sure what that means yet. I'm hoping that my mind can be open to it once I dig into the lyrics, but some of these lyrics made no sense to me. Um, so that'll be interesting when I dive into that in a second. Um, but yeah, so we have these contrasting elements in volume, we have these contrasting elements in instrumentation, and it really is sort of this ebb and flow. Also between the wild rhythmic structure of the Hocketed section, which probably taken as a whole, if we look at just the melodic section, it's probably not that complex. But when you introduce the Hocketed parts and giving this melody to all these different voices, it ends up feeling very choppy rhythmically. So then we move from that to groovy sections. You know, the bass comes in, the drums come in, we get these nice groove. Um, and so we have contrasting elements there as well. There's a huge binary element here where we're constantly looking at two sides of the same coin. Because I even mentioned later on that there seems to be a theme in here as well as 4 against 3. We have a lot of sections that once the groove kicks in, we're in 4/4, but there's still this element of 3 that shows up a lot. We have triplets, we have dotted quarter notes, and various uses of those against the 4/4 that we're feeling. That's really hammering home the downbeats in the 4. So yeah, duality is huge here. Not necessarily duality, maybe binary contrast though, at least. Two sides of the same coin. Um, Groove versus structurally complex or rhythmically complex. Hocketed verse. There's even a couple of sections in here that move away from the Hockets. Basically, whenever the vocalists aren't taking center stage, we don't have that Hocketing effect. I think the big section that stands out to me is the glockenspiel and the guitar or piano. That part was not Hocketed at all. It was more of an accompanying section with the melody line playing on top of it. It was more harmonious, it's less disjointed, less chaotic. So yeah, there's a lot of back and forth on extremes here, and I'm kind of curious how that might play into everything. Is there anything else I wanted to dig into before we get into the lyrics and try to tie all these themes up into a cohesive idea? I think the only other thing I think I really want to talk about is something that vaguely connects to the lyrics, but I did notice that in the Hocketed sections, because at first I thought the lyrics were Hocketed too, where one voice is getting, one syllable or one word, and then when the voice changed, they're getting the next word in the sentence, kind of like the story game, where you make a sentence, and then your friend makes a sentence, and their friend makes a sentence, and then you make a story by everybody kind of contributing and changing the story as it goes. That's kind of what it felt like here, where everybody is getting, words in. But the second time it came around, I noticed that wasn't it. In fact, everybody seemed to be participating in the same set of lyrics, just at different speeds, based on their Hocketed or their Hocketing. A vocal set that got more spotlight, maybe they got to do 8 words per bar, whereas the bass, for instance, really laid down more of a rhythmic structure. They only got 1 or 2 words per bar. So they would do the first word and then the second word and then the third word and then the fourth word in 2 bars, while the wider, the ones that were panned a bit wider, they might have gotten 6 words per bar, and they were just running through. And when it hit the end, they repeat, and they were just running in circles on this line. But everybody was participating in the same lyrics, at least in the second the second time we hit the verse. Like I said, the first time I was a bit confused. I'm hoping the lyrics might clear that one up for me. But yeah, I felt like the lyrics were hocketed in the first time, but this by the time the second time came around, and I think the third time when we came back to this, which makes me think the first time was like it as well, everybody was starting at the beginning, and it kind of turned into a canon where everybody had different lengths of time to do it. And a canon is Row, Row, Row Your Boat or Frere Jacques or any of those songs where one person starts and then after they finish the first line, they go to the second, somebody else starts on the first, and then when they get to the third and second, somebody else starts on the first. So you're always one line behind everybody else, but it creates this really nice harmony. Um, so yeah, that kind of like this staggered arrhythmic type of canon where everybody starts at the same place, but they move at different speeds. So we're getting all of these really interesting chordal ideas musically throughout, and it's just yeah, it's really interesting. And again, I don't know what this has to do with anything because at the beginning it was just this idea of fragmentation, right? The notes themselves are fragmented in the Hocket, but also the lyrics are fragmented. But when it came around to me realizing that everybody's singing the same thing just at different paces, it's not fragmentation anymore. It's all of these voices, whatever they may represent, whether it's people or thoughts or whatever, they're just out of sync. It's not about fragmentation anymore. It's about not being on the same page. And again, I'm really hoping when I dive into the lyrics here that some of this stuff is going to make sense. This duality, this being out of sync, even the hocketing itself, the disjointed element of that. Um, yeah, I'm kind of hoping things make sense because the music is doing a lot of interesting themes, a lot of interesting things theme wise. But I haven't really tied it into any lyrics because the lyrics were honestly all over the place. And like I said, you had multiple overlapping voices doing the same set of lyrics. So even though I might hear the full sentence, I also heard words being interjected into the full sentence occasionally. So it's just a really interesting listen. So let me dive into these and we'll see what I can find. Okay, this is some of the most Dr. Seuss style writing I have seen in musical lyrics in a while. And I really appreciate what's going on in here just because of the flow of not just the syllabic flow, but also just the way the words are melding into each other. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here that's just kind of going over my head. It's either extremely profound or extremely nonsensical. Just to start, here's the first stanza. All in all, each man in all men, and all men in each man, he can see, she can't, she can see whatever. Uh, this one is the only one that really speaks to me that I'm getting a sort of understanding about, and it kind of lines up with some of my themes. So I think this is what I'm going to base some of this lyrical breakdown on, and kind of hope the rest of this song extrapolates cleanly on it instead of expanding out to new ideas. Um, but I also really like the way that it's kind of, again, the flow of this. It's very flowery, poetic kind of stuff. And like I said, kind of profoundness bordering on nonsense. It says, it hurts him to think that she is hurting her by him being hurt, to think that she thinks he is hurt by making her feel guilty at hurting him by her thinking she wants him to want her, he wants her to want him, to get him to want him, to get him to want her, she pretends. Oh man, that is a lot. I thought I had that halfway through, and then I was like, nope. So it's this concept about kind of the Japanese idea of yomi, but within the concept of a relationship. And yomi is this four-step idea of being a step ahead of your opponent. So if you have one level of Yomi, you're a step ahead of your opponent. And this is something that can be used traditionally in competitive games such as chess. So to be Yomi stage 1, you're ahead of your opponent one move, right? You know what they're going to do next, and you have a plan for it. Yomi stage 2 is that they're a step ahead of your step ahead. Yomi stage 3 is that you're a step ahead of their step ahead of your step ahead. And I think Yomi stage 4 is actually where it flips over to being stage 0 again, where your opponent's ahead of your ahead of their ahead of your ahead, which basically puts you at nothing because so much can change that you basically don't know what either player is going to do anymore. Or maybe 4 is the last step, and then 5 is returning back to 0. But it's this idea of thinking ahead and calculating your moves based on what you think your opponent's going to do. It's this idea of Yomi. And applying that to a relationship. You know, it's this concept of, should I want him to want me? And if I do, should I act coy like I don't want him to want me? Or should I play it straight and let him know that I want him to want me? And does this double think actually make him feel guilty because he wants me and doesn't know that he'll get me? And that double think that's making him guilty might not actually make us go together, make us work well as a party, as a as a relationship, whatever level that may be. And does that hurt our chances at being friends? And does that hurt him by thinking that he can't get me? And will that hurt me because, we won't be in this relationship? And now thinking about all this hurts me because now I don't think that I have any chance at making this work because I'm frozen in this paralysis. It's a really interesting way to kind of create these layers of like I said, kind of trying to predict a relationship rather than being in the moment, trying to be in the future. And that comes with it of these layers. And we have a lot of layers in this music. We also have a lot of vocalization, which I think plays into more of a human element. That's not to say that we can't evoke humanity out of instrumentation, but hearing the human voice participate in music, especially in sections like this where it's purely a cappella, we have just words and the human voice to focus on, and we can hear them being out of sync with each other, not really lining up. There's not a lot of harmony other than the fact that we have these harmonized vocals, but the overall melodic idea is fragmented. We also have so yeah, there's this fragmentation of just a lack of unity, right? We have a bunch of people doing things differently at different times. So we don't have that unity, that cohesion, but we also have this multiple idea of layers, both in the thinking process here, but also in the fact that we have like 3 vocalists all participating in these vocals. They're just doing them at different paces, which is helping to augment the Hocket idea going on here. So yeah, like I said, I'm not too sure about all of this. There is one section that gets repeated a lot. You may know what I don't know, but not that I don't know it, and I can't tell you, so you will. That goes right over my head. There is that idea of 2 people not knowing if the other knows. So again, this lack of cohesion, this lack of combination, just working together, lack of harmony. So, I mean, yeah, I think they did a good job of kind of tying some of these lyrical themes, even though I'm not sure 100% of my analysis here is accurate. Like I said, there's quite a few stanzas that are just kind of going over my head as far as what they're alluding to. But some of the stuff, like there's also one that gets repeated twice. He says he tries to make her afraid by not being afraid and just repeats this sentence over and over. And that kind of lines up with that whole relationship Yomi concept of, how do I go about fixing this? Should I, trying to think one step ahead? If I do this, will it help her? That kind of concept there about, again, not living in the present, living in this disjointed element of multiple fractured futures. Ooh, Oh, that's kind of a nice idea there too. You know, trying to perceive so many different outcomes that you're looking at several branches into the future, that it's fragmented again, taking this idea of fragmentation of a unified concept, which would be the future, or in the music, the melody, and splitting up in so many ways that it's almost impossible to see what is what anymore. And especially with the way that they went about mixing the Hocketed section, it's also very easy to not hear the melody or the truth of the future in another sense as a whole. Instead, you can only see the various elements of it. So yeah, I don't know how the idea of duality comes into this, other than the fact that there's a lot of you and I in the lyrics. It's never really about groups; it's about smaller relationships. And then some of the other contrasting ideas I'm not really able to tie into the lyrics here, but I think even just what I have tied together between this Hocket and this lack of cohesion and coming together to create a unified whole, even just looking at this single stanza about this girl and this guy not knowing how to get their relationship started, it seems like, and the way that that ties into what's going on musically at that moment, I am happy enough with that little moment, and it really makes me want to dig into what else is going on here, check out some interviews or something, and just dive more into the song, because that little piece right there is done so well. It makes me think that the rest of the song is done well as well. I just don't have the information to tie it together. There is one more line I want to read to you guys, just because again, it's just really profound or nonsense. I get what I deserve what I get. I have it, so I deserve it, for I have it. I get what I deserve, what I deserve, what I deserve, what I get. I have it, so I deserve. It, it is just this cyclical concept of, if I got it, I deserved it, and I deserve it if I have it. And if I don't, then I guess I didn't deserve it. Not explicitly said, but sort of implied based on what's being said here. And it's a really interesting duality there. It kind of moves away from the uncertainty of the relationship. Thinking 10,000 steps ahead, what happens if I do any of this, to a very certain idea. If I have it, I must have deserved it, and I deserve what I have. It's a cyclical reasoning that says anything that's happened must have happened because that was the only way it could have happened. Um, and I don't know how to tie that into anything else, but it also provides a bit of a duality there with the uncertainty of the future versus the certainty of the now. And again, I'm not sure how it all ties together, but there's elements of that in the music. There's a lot of duality concepts that we went over previously. So yeah, just really interesting song altogether. Musically, I'm interested in it just because of the really strong Hocketing concept and the fact that, that single idea is done so well that it can be the hook for the entire song. But also lyrically, I'm so intrigued by what's going on here. I think those are going to be my thoughts for Gentle Giant's Knots. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you have any insight into this, if you enjoyed it, if you have any information about the song or interviews or your own personal take on it. I'm always open to see other perspectives as well, and maybe you had a completely different understanding of it yourself. It's just as accurate or subjective as mine. I'm not going to say that mine is a definitive read of it anyways. I'm just one guy telling you how I feel listening to a song. So, like I said, I'm always open to other people's perspectives and their interpretations as well. When you're done commenting, you can head up to the description box, and there's a link for Linktree. It'll take you to this menu right here. You can do all sorts of stuff. You can join the Patreon help support the channel while getting access to voting on future themes and songs. You can follow me on Twitter, join the Discord community, and chat with other people who love music. Um, I don't know. You can buy some merch there. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff in there. Go check it out. It's a big menu there. Above the description box, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. All right, we got one more video coming out today. It is Pain of Salvation on Special Selection. Like I said, that's our 800th video, which is just bonkers. That is a lot of music to listen to in just over 2 years. It's just wild. Thanks everybody for getting me here. I would never be able to do this without all the support, whether that's helping out through Patreon, helping me get my bills paid, or just spreading the word, helping with the YouTube algorithm with comments and likes, whatever. Everybody's doing their part, and I thank everybody for helping me get here. We passed 20K, I think? I don't even know anymore. Yeah, we're almost at 21K, so subscribers. So we're keep trucking. Like I said, I thank everybody for helping me get this far. We're all doing this together, and we're all learning about music in awesome ways. Not just how music's awesome, but also learning about new types of music. So yeah, I guess I'm very thankful. But yeah, if you don't want to check that Pain of Salvation one out, as usual, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC. We're going to look at another vocal harmonies track. I didn't even really talk about them. I was still blown away by the Hocket. There are vocal harmonies in here, and they're very well done. We'll be looking at another vocal harmonies track, as well as another special selection. Alright, until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.